Welcome. Good morning, grinders. Yeah, I almost forgot my own intro, right? I was going to say welcome. No, it should be good morning, grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. blenderhd, Blender HD. This is the show where we go over last night's slate. We talk a little bit about strategy. We take a first look of today's 5-game NBA slate. And as always in NBA, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. This is what we do. Mondays through Fridays here on RotoGrinders. I'm here, 11 o'clock every weekday. You can subscribe on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the notification bell to let you know when we go live. And this is what I do every morning. So it's the NBA. We all know, even though it's a 5-game slate today, right? It's a 5-game slate. Maybe there isn't as much news throughout the day, but we know that anything that we look at 11 o'clock in the morning, by 6 o'clock tonight, Eastern time, you could just rip it up, throw it out. It doesn't matter. We saw that yesterday, right? We saw it yesterday. I see the people in the chat. Feel free, if you're on YouTube, as always, hit that thumbs up button, thummy thumb. Give me the thummy thumbs, right? Keep the apple juice cold, right? Makes no sense, but do it anyway. I see the people in the chat. Feel free to type in and ask whatever strategy questions about the tools here at RotoGrinders. This is kind of a teaching session where we're going to school here every morning here on RotoGrinders. So I see the people in the chat. I see Card Fan, I see Heat Nation, I see Frederick Duke, Jim Steele, KJ, Chris Clark, Mike B. We got the thummy thumbs going. We got all of them going. And yesterday the thummy thumbs. If you stack the Warriors Kings game, you got a thumb right in your you-know-what. Well, maybe Curry was fine, right? Oubre was okay, but pretty much, they blew out the Kings. So the Kings were kind of chalky, and I got kind of lucky. So I also show transparently. I'm 100% transparent. So I do have a spreadsheet. I'll bring it up right now. I'm also the producer of the show, so I have to also click on things and do stuff like that. Okay, let me extend this to make sure I have to make sure that the zoom is in so you could see it, so you guys could see it. But I track my cash game play, which is cash games if you don't know. If you're new here, if you're new to DFS, cash games refers to, it's like a poker term. It refers to head-to-heads, double-ups, triple-ups, quintuple-ups, three-mans, things where you don't have to get 1,000,000 points, right? You're just trying to beat one person. You're trying to come in the top half of a contest and you get double your money, or 50% of the field cashes 1.8x, and I track it on a spreadsheet that I do have a link to. It's not in the description, but if you follow me on Twitter or you're in the RG Discord, you could see it. I show this every day anyway. But yesterday, good day on DraftKings, good day on FanDuel, not so much on Yahoo. Yahoo, I had Exum and Holmes, so that was thumb down for that. DraftKings, I did have Exum, but I got incredibly lucky. So this $880 over here, that's like a gift. Thank you, Rashawn Holmes, and the foul trouble. He was 60% on cash games that I didn't have him. So that did well. FanDuel had Osman, so that obviously did well. So this, just to show you, I do this just to show you, because most people don't know how sharper cash players, I guess I would consider myself a sharper cash player, or sharper player in general, just like shows their work, shows their results. Now, I track all this stuff in RotoTracker as it is, right? This you could get this if a Roto Tracker, RotoGrinders used to have RG Analyzer. Hopefully, it comes back at some point where you could just import your CSVs, your contest CSVs from DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, anywhere, and it'll show you like where you're doing well, where you're not doing well, your finishing position, stuff like that. But in order to, you can't really share Roto Tracker with other people. I could share a graph, I could share a screen, but like not the whole thing without giving you my login, and I'm not doing that because then you'll be uploading CSVs for who knows what, and then it's all garbage. So I track it here just to show you the progression. Like you're not going to win every night, right? Your goal is to win 55+% of the time, right? You could beat the rake, winning. You get around 10% rake. Obviously, the higher up you go, the rate comes down a little. And see the progression. I wager 10% of my bankroll, of my $20,000 cash bankroll for this NBA season. And then about 60% head-to-heads, 35% double-ups, 5% triple-ups, three-mans, those types of things for a little bit of upside. And then I track it on every site, and I just enter it, and, I put my score here just so you know that I'm transparent. These are the scores, what the slate size is. Because smaller slates have more variance and larger slates have less variance. And there you go. So doing well in DK now, doing extremely well on FanDuel. Yahoo not so much, 5 and 6. But it's hard to get volume on Yahoo without like just playing six mans against other sharp players. So I don't devote that much bankroll to it, right? So I have a nice little split here. So tonight if I'm wagering 10%. If my bankroll is 28,439, that means I'm going to be playing around 2,800, 2,900 combined amongst all the sites. So you can see here, when you play multiple sites in cash games, you get to kind of semi-hedge because you're playing different players on different sites depending on the positions, the salaries. So for instance, like I played Holmes on Yahoo, but not on DraftKings. And then on other days, you're playing Curry in your lineup, but you're not playing Curry on this site. So like you try to balance it out. So you may lose on one site, you win on another site. It kind of ends up becoming a wash to some extent. So you're not going through these ridiculous swings. So just always want to point this out. We got people in the chat. Feel free to type in your questions. I'll throw it up on the screen. Right here, he goes like Justin Sports right here. I gotta move this up over here. Okay, there you go. So that's much better because I don't want it to cover my face. My beautiful face! It's covering my face. Okay, no, I'll move the comment up here. I've been playing 6 years and profitable, and still massively struggle with bankroll management and even really building a bankroll. Well, I mean, if you've been profitable over 6 years, like you're part of like the top like 5%, top 2% of all DFS players. So I mean, that's an accomplishment in and of itself. I mean, most people lose lifetime at this game, but 90+% of people are losers lifetime. But as far as bankroll management is that you have to match the risk with the edge. Okay? Now you need a large sample size to determine whether or not like you have an edge in this game. And then you also have to determine what the variance is in certain contests. Okay? So like double ups, head to heads, like there's going to be lower variance because, if you have an edge, you're going to win 60% of the time, 62% of the time. If you're elite, 64, 65% of the time. So you're still going to lose like 40% of the time around if you have an edge. Now in GPPs, if you're playing large field stuff versus small field stuff, maybe you catch a little bit more often. Maybe you come in the top 5 spots a little bit more often. But your edge may be actually small because you're playing against a lot of other sharper players. But in the large field contests, a lot of times you go down to the bottom 20% of those contests, you'll see lineups that you're just amazed how people put it together. It's almost as like people just took their heads, banged them against the keyboard, and whatever players came out, or they butt dialed, they kind of like butt dialed their lineup on their phone. So there's a lot of edge in those contests, but it's very hard to win those. Right? It's very hard to realize your EV. You can build great lineups over and over and over again, come close, not get there, and it may take you a long time to realize your EV in one shot, which is basically winning the thing. So you may have an immense amount of edge, but without proper bankroll management, you'll never survive to actually realize it. If you're playing 20% of your bankroll in large field GPPs every day, like you're more likely to go broke unless you have unless you have an edge that is unheard of in DFS, which there is none. Your risk of ruin is going to be extremely high. So there's a thing called the Kelly criterion. Now, the Kelly formula, I mean, I could even bring it up. Like the Kelly formula, since we're talking about it, Kelly criterion calculator. Like the Kelly criterion is just, you put in your edge, on a bet, and it'll tell you based on the probability, like what your optimal bet size would be, your optimal wager for the slate. Now this is good in games such as, like a blackjack, a card game, a game that has like very fixed probabilities. Like you could determine that easily what your edge is. But in DFS, it's very hard. I mean, you could play well for a month and lose. And like, do I have an edge? Do I not have an edge? It's very hard to determine exactly what your edge is. And even over a 6-year sample size, like the standard deviation of what your ROI is still quite large. So, you could be a losing player for 6 years and actually have like a 3% edge based on the way that you play. Just that you did bad variance over that whole long period of time, and vice versa. I mean, a lot of people, I think that the number one thing that people do in DFS is they get in, they play for a little bit, and after a month, like, they do well. They hit like a second, third place or something like that, and then they think they're great, right? So like, well, I'm great at this. I'm going to start, I started with a $500 bankroll, but now that I have $5,000, I'm going to play like $1,000 today. And I'm going to play $1,500 tomorrow. I'm going to enter the high stakes contest. And it's like, no, variance is going to just slap your ass down. And you're probably, your edge is not that high, if it exists at all, that you should be risking that much on every single slate. And of course, I'm conservative. So like, I lean on more of the side of like when I have a big enough bankroll, I have a $200,000 bankroll. Like I can't handle $20,000 swings on a weekly basis. So like I'm 41. I have a nice lifestyle. I don't need to make all the money. If I take a look here at my cash bankroll tracker, like I'm up right now on the season in cash games $8,400. Like that's great. Holy God, that's great, right? Can I make this every month? Like I'm good. Like if I could, and this is eventually going to come up and down. The swings. You can see the red here. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. You're going to lose. I'm going to lose $1,000 on a day. I'm going to win $1,600 on a day. It's going to go up and down. This is like an investment. So just like you'd put money into a stock portfolio, like you're not sweating out the daily, changes in the Dow Jones. Like I put this in, and I'll take a look at it in 6 months, right? Like I don't care how it got there, right? I'm not sweating these swings as much. So like, yeah, there were certain days like, the 26th, I lost $1,100 on Draftkings. Oh my God, the world is over. It's like, dude, like if I just woke up today after starting playing and said, I'm up $8,400, like I'll take, the swings? The swings don't matter. So don't get all wrapped up necessarily in that. Just play well, manage your bankroll as effectively as you can, and then don't have the fear of missing out. Don't feel like, I do want to play the 777 today. Well, then don't play it. You don't have to, right? Well, I normally play this, but it's a 2-game slate, and 2-game slates could have immense amount of variance. Maybe you're not entering 100 lineups. Maybe you're not playing the mini-max. Maybe you're taking the slate off. It's perfectly fine to just say, I'm not feeling it today. I don't think I could build plus EV lineups, or I don't think there's an edge in doing so. I think everyone is going to kind of know what they're doing, and then you just don't play that day, right? You don't have to play, right? I know that we're on RotoGrinders, and typically the type of people that are listening to the show, watching on YouTube, and of course, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. Give me the thumbs. Are a little bit higher than casual, a little bit more regular players. But you need to be able to survive, especially if you're a GPP player. Like, you need to be able to survive to get to those big wins, right? If you're not going to survive, if you're not going to build up a large sample size, you could be the greatest player and just have no bankroll. And that's why it's so important. There's no trick to it, and there's no bankroll management strategy that could save a losing player. So, like, just build good lineups, play well, and survive until you get your big hit. So that would be my suggestion. But also looking through the chat, yeah, Frederick is asking, I'm playing one lineup per site. Yes, for cash games I are. Let's see. J10, that's going off the screen. All these chat boxes that come up on my broadcast software are always different sizes. When playing the $25 double ups with contest selection to partake in, I try to play the largest double ups that I can. Instead of the 22 mans, I try to play the 113 man $50 double ups. Like if I'm going to play the $5 double ups, I want the 124s or the 62s versus the 23s. Right? You're paying about the same rate, but I just want more access to more opponents. I want to diversify as many opponents that I'm playing. So in head-to-heads, I'm playing $25 head-to-heads, $20 $10 head-to-heads, $10 $20 head-to-heads, $5 $50 head-to-heads. I want as many different opponents as possible. I don't want all my risks to be in like one contest, one lineup, and just the swing. Someone rostered, some guy that goes off at 8% owned, but he happens to be in my $1,000 head-to-head. Well, I'm going to lose that day. So I kind of want as much diversification as possible. I have a question. At what point do you cash out? The bankroll that doesn't mean what's in your Draftkings or Fanduel account. It just means the money that you've set aside. It's like an investment. The money that you have in your Vanguard account, right? It's the same thing as an investment. So it's not like I don't necessarily have I don't have $200,000 on the sites because it serves no purpose. I mean, they're making interest off of it and I'm not. So I'd rather I keep my money in a separate place and then load it on when I need to, take it off when I do. I win a GPP for $50,000 now. Okay, send me a $40,000 check and leave $10,000 on the site, as I play. And then if that goes down too much, and then I add 5,000, take out 5,000. I mean, you could do it all day. I didn't realize we are going to talk so much about the day-to-day play of I guess what you call a pro DFS player. Am I a pro DFS player? Does it count? I mean, it's a majority of my income, but I guess so. I guess so. If you want to talk about that, that's what these shows are all about in the morning. I know we could bring up Results DB. We could start talking about last night's slate, which we will. But it kind of goes whatever way the chat goes. If you're here live, you come first, okay? I know some people, you'll be listening on iTunes, on the podcast. And if you're listening on the podcast version, the pregame show feed on iTunes, subscribe to that and rate and review it, right? If you like it, it used to be the Daily Fantasy Fix feed. So that it's all the reviews of how people didn't like Dan, right? Or plenty of people like Dan, but it's like from 5 years ago. I need reviews on iTunes that say that you like me, or maybe you don't like me, or whatever. Rate and review on iTunes. But if you show up live weekdays, 11 in the morning, here on RotoGrinders YouTube, you get priority. So if you have questions, I have answers. So if you're listening and later, and maybe you're at work, maybe you have a day off, 11 in the morning, maybe you're at work and you're watching this instead of doing your work, that's perfectly fine. Join us in the YouTube chat and ask your questions. Okay. Daniel Johnson says playing cash games is the missionary position of DFS. Well, that's what some people think, but to me, it's a way to stabilize my GPP play. Okay, let's see. Going through the chat, I'm just scrolling through. Feel free to type in. Tim Moyer asked about thanks for the show. Would love to hear more thoughts on the difficulties of predicting ownership. NFL is much easier to predict for me. NBA has been hard. NBA is quite hard because late news changes everything, right? Garland got ruled out yesterday, right? We had Fournier ruled out. Garland got ruled out. Then Powell wasn't going to play. Then Olynyk was in the starting lineup. I mean, we had a lot of stuff going on, right? Marcus Smart was ruled out a little bit earlier than that. And then we have, obviously, early in the day, Blake Griffin and Josh Jackson were ruled out. So, that changes everything. If you calculated ownership at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's nowhere near what it is by the time lock hits, right? So, that's what makes it hard. NFL, you have a whole week, right? It rarely happens that you have something at 11:30 when inactives come out on Sunday morning that, dramatically skews ownership. Okay. Brian C. ask strategy question when it comes to before lock news. It's like Cauley Stein starting last night and Ellington in the Pistons starting lineup. Do you just jam them in because they're cheap, or how do you determine what's a good play or not? Well, obviously, if you have your own projections, you'd be putting that in and seeing whether or not they're a good play, point per dollar value. But I'm more likely to jam late news in NBA the later it is, right? I'm more likely. Doesn't mean I do, but I'm more likely. Like the Blake Griffin news we got earlier in the day, like nearly the entire field has adjusted for that. But we could see in sharper players' builds. I have the shoot around special from last night, the big 150 GPP. Maswa won, and we got a bunch of good 150 multi entry players, and you could see how they reacted to late news. Because we take a look here, Kelly Olynyk. A lot of some people didn't, but several players just jammed in Olynyk when he's starting. But of course, it's Spoelstra, right? Spoelstra for the Heat. Sometimes he starts a guy, plays 6 minutes, and you never see the court again. So this was a higher risk situation, but you were rewarded for it. Kelly Olynyk ended up at 10.6% owned, and put up 32 points for 3,900. So that's a nice 8x type of score. So you see some sharper players jam that. Some sharper players, I see Willie Cauley-Stein down here, right? Because once Kleber and Willie Cauley-Stein started, that's basically a sign that Dwight Powell wasn't going to play, right? Pretty much, right? Typically he would start, but it's a back-to-back, and they just decided to rest Powell, even not making him inactive, but just not playing him. We saw that with DeLon Wright. People were tilting that, right? People played DeLon Wright, and then it doesn't get in until Killian Hayes gets injured. But you see sharper players, a lot of them, not every one, jammed in the late news. And those were cheap centers, right? We had a slate where the popular construction had Holmes at center or Capella or both. Some would, I guess. Some wood ownership, Wood, Holmes, Capella. So if you were able to get even cheaper centers, you were then able to pay up for a Luka, Harden, Giannis, those types. So we see in all of these sharper players builds that like played Olynyk. So we have Olynyk here for Maswa, and where's Cauley-Stein? 12% Cauley-Stein. Yeah, but you can't fit in both, right? All of these types of builds, we could probably look and see, a lot of Tatum, like higher priced players in other spots. Luka got a whole bunch of ownership because Curry was going to be popular, right? Because we had Curry high owned, and it didn't mean that these guys didn't play him, right? Still plenty of Curry. But once you could jam in 2 cheap centers, then you could pay up at multiple spots, and the most leverage that you had was on Curry's ownership. So playing a guard that's above Curry. So Harden, so Luka, things like that. Kind of hard to get different in the small forward, power forward spots because it was quite barren. So you probably paid up for Tatum, who had a great game, or you played Harrison Barnes in the mid range, or you played Jaylen Brown instead of Tatum. Maybe Tobias Harris, but not much of him. Obviously, we had Damian Dotson as a value play when Garland was ruled out. So Dotson or Exum. And obviously, the whole dynamic of that game changed when Exum got injured in the first minute. Because now the Cavs had like almost no rotation. So Osman had to play a ton, and Dotson had to play a ton, and Sexton had to play a ton. And then they got blown out anyway. So it didn't matter at the end of the day. We also saw Burks get ruled out. So they had, Peyton didn't even play the fourth quarter. Quickly was playing so well. But Peyton had a great game heading into his third quarter rotation and then just never came back. So he got stuck on 28, but he was on the road to a 40-point game right there. So if you played him, that was pretty good. Kleber, obviously you could have played him as a cheap center power forward play. But you see here, even Tremont Waters, like a bunch of people played Tremont Waters. I did. You could see, look at this. Before the slate, earlier in the day, we had Teague ruled out. Okay, when Teague was ruled out, it bumped up the projection for Peyton Pritchard. It was almost expected that Pritchard would start, right? And get 28 to 32 minutes, which at his salary at $3,700 would be great, right? And then we saw the Celtics starting lineup and Tremont Waters was going to start. Now, Do you expect Waters to get much usage in the first unit with Tatum and Brown out there? Probably not. But we had a bunch of people take a shot on Waters because of the late news. So yeah, so we see Mazza at 48%, JBC 28%, Bills fan 28%. He Hafner had none, but people had some. Tremont Waters. But that also lowered the median minutes for Peyton Pritchard. Because then it really doesn't change Pritchard's role. Other than, yes, he'll get good second unit usage. So a lot of sharper players actually went down on Pritchard. So we see here Bills fan 0, JK 0, Kobe 1.3%, Hafner 4%. Even this was lower. I mean, Brick was 22%, 30% from Mazza, which is still lower than his 31.39%. The problem is that Boston blew him out and Pritchard just played the whole fourth quarter. So yeah, so he got there. Do I consider that lucky? Do I think that Pritchard was a bad play? No. But once Waters was announced in the starting lineup, you have to bump down those minutes, at least 2 or 3 minutes from Pritchard, which took him from a good value play to a, okay, you could play him, right? He wasn't bad. Just that, okay, you could play him. But I mean, when he's 31% owned, maybe that's fadeable in certain lineups. Same for Sadiq Bey, right? He didn't really get there, right? He didn't really do much on the floor. So, but the small forward, power forward position last night was not many projected well, right? You either had to pay down and play someone like Sadiq Bey or pay up and play someone like Tatum. Obviously, if you paid up and played Tatum, you did much better. But I don't fault it for anyone that builds constructions with Sadiq Bey and they have a snowflake and a great lineup. I'm assuming a lot of you out there had lineups that had 7 flame emojis and Sadiq Bey with the snowflake. And you're like, oh, if I could only get 20 more points, I would have won the GPP. But if you take a look at sharp players' lineups across the board, they did the same thing. So you didn't do anything stupid by playing Sadiq Bey last night. But obviously his upside is limited. I tried to find constructions that I didn't need him, but it was very hard to do in that small forward spot. I played some Dwayne Bacon instead. That didn't really get there either. But yeah, small forward was not the best of positions yesterday. Going through the YouTube chat as always. Doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. I just scroll through. So if you have a question, maybe I get to it. So I'm not viewing it like in real time as I speak. So while you ask your questions and type in the chat, hit that thumbs up button. Let's see. Milo Kaminsky, would you have done anything differently yesterday in GPPs after seeing actual ownership besides picking the players that would win you a GPP? Yeah, this is the way that you should be thinking. Like, had I known this guy was going to be this owned, I wouldn't have played him. Or had I known he would have been this low owned, I would have played him, right? Because that's really what you're comparing things in GPP for a specific player. It's like, does this player project well? And does his projection match his ownership? Is he going to be under-owned for his ceiling or over-owned for his ceiling? So I think someone like Capella, I knew it was going to be popular. I didn't expect, a lot of this Holmes ownership, it seemed like more people, when they went to Olynyk or Cauley Stein, went away from Holmes and less so Capella. That's what I noticed. Because I thought Holmes would come in way higher. Not saying that now I would have played so much of him. But I was expecting Holmes to be over 30%. And Capella to be around 30%. So that kind of get a little flipped. But I'm assuming it was due to the Willie Cauley-Stein and Kelly Olynyk ownership. I mean, it wasn't much, but you take 10% Olynyk and what, 5% or something, 3% Cauley-Stein. It has to come from somewhere. So it seemed to come out more of Holmes' ownership than Capella's ownership. I was playing Capella in lineups where I'm playing like Randall, Peyton, those guys. Holmes, most likely you're playing Curry in that lineup. So I can understand not playing Holmes. Because if you're going to play Curry, and let's say you wanted to fit in, you're like, okay, I have Capella and Holmes in my lineup. And I want to fit in Willie Cauley-Stein or Kelly Olynyk. but you only have 2 center slots on DraftKings. So you have your center slot and a utility slot, but you can only have 2 slots to fit them in. Who do you take out? Well, Curry and Holmes, those are the chalky guys. Capella's the chalky guy, but if you're not playing Peyton or Randall on that lineup, maybe you just don't play any part of that game. So maybe the more likely scenario is that you take out Capella and then you put in Willie Cauley-Stein or Olynyk in that lineup. But in a lineup that doesn't have Curry and has Holmes, it makes more sense to take out Holmes. So you don't have as much of the Kings-Warriors game. So think of those types of, when you're trying to make those 50-50 decisions, I typically lean on 1, who's the higher projected, 2, who is lower owned, or 3, who's more correlated to your lineup, or not correlated to your lineup, right? Those are the things you'd be thinking of strategy-wise, and less so like who's going to do well. Because you have projections, like you have a range of outcomes. Here you go. Who knows what's going to happen on one specific game? But obviously, like those are the 3 things: 1, 2, 3 on your fingers, and hit that thumbs up button. Give me the thummy thumbs. Give me the thummy thumbs. Okay, let's see. Shane Riley asks, what's the best way to reevaluate your process to make sure it's correct versus just catching bad luck? Go through results DB like this. Like these are all top DFS players for at least large field GPP type players. Maswood, Tinky Tyler, Brick, DeColts, E. Hafner, all these guys. So go in and see how they built lineups. You could use results DB. You could go through individual lineups if you want. I a lot of times I do, but this is a good representation of their constructions. And go through and say, did I construct lineups similarly to some of these guys? Now, they did different things. Like, we take a look here. Like, they all didn't do the same things. You know, we have Jimmy Butler, right? Bills fan, try to get a ton of leverage at small forward with Jimmy Butler. That game blew out, so that didn't matter. He also had 76% Dwayne Bacon, right? So, I mean, that small forward position, he filled this way. Small forward position, and for other people, they filled a different way. They're all different types of constructions, but good lineups to build. How did they get different? So if you see that you're building lineups in similar directions of top GPP players, then it's less likely that you had bad luck on the slate. That's like, nope, you just didn't get there. If you see that you're wildly off from most top players, I mean, yeah, it could be that you're playing way too contrarian, but then it's more likely that, okay, let me reevaluate my process. Okay, going through. Chris Clark asked, what was my starting bankroll when I first started DFS? $400. October 2015, I had $400 in my DraftKings account. Now I have $200,000. And I've won, $350,000 overall, but of course, obviously, the tax man takes a bunch of it. And then obviously expenses and stuff. So yeah. $400 into $360,000 over the course of 5 years. It's doable. I played the quarter arcade. You know, and for people that don't know me, 5 years ago, I was playing the dollar contest. I was playing, the quarter arcade and learning how to play. If I look at myself 5 years ago, I'd be like, that guy was an idiot. Hey, if I look at myself from a year ago, I think, wow, that guy didn't really know as much as as he thought he did. And then I know a year from now, I'll be thinking, the guy that was on the DFS pregame show on Tuesday, January 6th, that guy was kind of an idiot. Because a year from now, I'm probably going to know and get better at things that I'm not doing as well now. Okay, going through the chat. Donnie Watson asks about why did so many pros fade Pritchard? Because his minutes went down. Like, his projection didn't, pop as much with him not start. Like, if you could project him for 30 to 32 minutes, then he was fine. But if you're only projecting him for 26 to 28 minutes, he's meh, right? He's a meh play, right? So that's the difference. It's not a matter of, what Pritchard's usage was going to be about the same, and his minutes were going to be about the same as he previously had. So it's not going to change all that much. If he started, then you could at least, yes, his usage goes down, but his minutes go up. Okay. How am I computing for 8 times value? Well, I mean, I could show you on our projections right here. We have on Lineup HQ, this is where obviously the projections were updated at what, 10 o'clock in the morning? I mean, don't even go by this, right? This is a premium product. Okay, so you have to go to rotogrinders.com/premium. Click the link in the description for $10 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium, whether it be NBA or the combo package. But in Lineup HQ, it shows the projections, but it also shows this figure we see here. Let me blow this up. Let me blow it up. Zoom in. Zoomy zooms. Give me the thummy thumbs for the zoomy zooms. I don't know why why am I treating you like I'm talking to a 6-month-old. But we have this thing. Jamino has what's called smash percentage, and that based on these numbers. So essentially, this number right here is the median projection. So that's the 50th percentile outcome. It doesn't mean that we think that he's going to score 24 points today. No, just that if we played this slate over 1,000 times, the middle result would be 24. You'd have some 12s, you have some 36s, you have some 8s, you have some 26s, you have all over the place. It's simulated out. So, but his median would be 24. His 16th percentile outcome would be 11. His 84th percentile outcome would be 35, right? So 50% of the time, he gets 24. 86% of the time, he gets at least 11. 14% of the time, he gets at least 35. So based on this, what's called a distribution curve, right? If we take a look, I'll give you a lesson. We'll talk about a normal distribution curve. Now, these curves aren't necessarily completely normal, but they're normal enough. So if we take a look here, like right here, this is what a projection looks like. People see a number. They don't get it. This is what a projection looks like. So that 24 is right here, right where my mouse is, right over here. Let me blow this up even more. Can I get this? Let's see. Okay, whatever. It's small enough. So that 24 is over here. That 12 is over here. Right? Right over here. 30. This is a 68% range. So 11, 12 over here, 35 over here. And then you have very outlier results this way. So this is really what a projection kind of looks like. Okay? So if we go back to Lineup HQ, we're going to calculate what a $3,700 player needs to score in order to likely be in a GPP winning lineup. A lot of times people compute that as like 5x plus 10, or it could be 7x. It could be whatever your version of what a smash score is. You could put that on that distribution curve. So where does a smash score? So how much does he need for his salary for a $3,700 player? If you say he needs it right there, well then that's what percentile outcome he needs. So basically it's saying his 64th percentile outcome is a smash in GPP, which is a 36% chance. So he's a 36% chance of getting a score that would be needed. Kyrie Irving, 51-point median, 33-point floor, which is the 16th percentile outcome. 70 points for the 84th percentile outcome. Where on that curve, right? 33. Well, we have 33, 51, 70. So right in this range. So where does his smash? Where does he smash? 34% of the time. And you could do that. You could do that. It's computed for you. You could do this in Excel if you want, right? If you make your own projections, you're most likely doing this already. You're simulating it out, and within one standard deviation, what's the range, what's the median, and what percent of the time does that player hit a score where there's the flame emoji and you're in the first place lineup, most likely. So it's a little math lesson for you, because people don't get it. People think that, like, oh, it means RotoGrinders thinks that Jokic is going to score 57 points today. Like, no, just based on projections, he'll score 57 points 50% of the time, right? 50% of the time he won't score 57 points. He'll score something lower than that. So it's not a prediction. It's a projection. Going through the chat, hit the thumbs up button. Keep my apple juice cold. Keep my apple juice cold. Let's see how cold it is. Okay, not bad. Not bad. You're doing well out there, hitting those thumbs ups, right? It helps us out. I'm told it helps us out. I have no idea. The YouTube gods come and visit me every day and say, you need more thumbs. You need more. I only have 2 thumbs. I play on multiple sites. I'm on my phone all the time. How many thumbs do I need? I don't know how many thumbs I do. I don't even know how many thumbs I need. Let's go through. Wall Street Russ says, I consider myself a decent DFS player, but I've been running really bad over the last year. Has that happened to you? Yeah, of course it happened. But this past year it happened to me. How do you handle it? By managing your bankroll and keeping yourself sane. Reevaluating your process. Don't necessarily change things dramatically. Reevaluate. There's so many things that you could do. If you're studying every day, which is what I do. This is why I do this show. Look at the Results DB as part of my normal process. I've been doing this for 5 years. Results DB didn't exist 5 years ago, but I would download CSVs of contests and study good players' lineups. Not the winning lineup, but good players' lineups. And that's how I learned. I didn't just get this out of the... I didn't invent these concepts, right? I'm like, well, these guys are good. What are they doing? I played poker. So a lot of the concepts from poker apply to DFS. So I was like, okay, how do I merge those together? And by studying top players, that's what I was able to do. And then reading good content that you find on RotoGrinders. There's a ton. You don't even realize how much good content there is on RotoGrinders in the back catalog. There are strategy articles from 8 years ago that are applicable now, that you could learn how to play well in DFS now. There are videos like there's no tomorrow. You could probably watch on RotoGrinders. In Roto Academy, we have tons of premium videos, 50 hours, 60 hours worth of videos on NBA DFS, on MLB DFS, on NFL DFS, using optimizers, using the tools, strategy, all those types of things. They're all in the back catalog. You could watch a video from 3 years ago. It still applies today. The strategies don't change. The concepts don't change. So if you sign up for RotoGrinders, rotogrinders.com/premium, or in the link in the description, you get $10 off your first month. And hey, use it for a month, watch all the stuff, and then cancel if you want. If you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. You get as much as you can out of that month as you want, but that's how I learned. I mean, I was a RotoGrinder subscriber before being a host here. So like this is how I learned. I mean, I learned from RotoGrinders. Okay, let's go through chat. I'm way behind on chat. I'm scrolling. I see you guys. Hi, Brian Taylor. Where you go? Went with Warriors Kings. Yeah, that didn't work out. Let's see. Blender, did I make a mistake with keeping Holmes? And Capella, I know Curry, but I leverage his ownership with Wiggins. Okay, that's fine. I did that in a lineup or two. Right? I played Wiggins instead of Curry. You play Wiggins with Holmes or Wiggins with Barnes. No, I get that. I think that's perfectly fine. Capella is reliant on rebounds, so you don't necessarily care about scoring in that game. So I think Capella as a one-off is perfectly fine. I don't think you did. I don't think you did anything wrong. There's nothing strategic in there that doesn't make sense, right? It's NBA DFS. The correlations are so weak that if you don't want to stack people together and do those things, you don't have to. But, I mean, when in doubt, 50-50 scenario, do I play this guy or this guy? Typically, I side with the more correlative, keeping the guys that are in the same game opposite each other. QQ from Donnie Watson. I played Wall in single entry. The pros did not. Why was he a bad play? Because he didn't project well. Essentially, sometimes that's the answer. In the comparison of the 9-game slate, Wall did not project well. That's the best answer I could give you, right? With everyone back for Houston against Dallas, I mean, you could have played him, but there were many other better projected point guards on the slate, especially on a slate where we had plenty of guards to play. So is it yes, he could reach his ceiling, but his ceiling probability, his smash percentage in our projections was significantly lower than other guards. Right? It was somewhere like 12%, something like that. Biggest tip for new NBA players other than be available up to lock. Well, that probably is the best tip, Brian. Brian, you be available up to lock. You have to be available after lock also. That's another tip. But I mean, the biggest tip for new NBA players would be NBA is the lowest variance sport in DFS, and like if you're not using projections, you're dead. I mean, virtually, unless you're playing small field cash games. If you're playing small field single entry or cash games, if you're playing the 400 man 777 or something, or you're playing double ups or something, you don't need projections to identify like the most inefficiently priced players most of the time. I could do it by eye myself, right? Most of the time, before I even look at the projections, I could kind of build the best cash lineup or somewhere close. But outside of that, like, it's the most projectable sport. So if you're not using projections, then like you're significantly behind the field. So I would say that would be my number one tip of just. So out of all the sports to not have projections, NBA it hurts you the most to not have them. Because it's baseball, you can get a lucky home run, and touchdown in football. Like, those type of events happen where out of the blue a guy gets a lot of points, but you don't get that in basketball. So it's much better to project minutes, project usage, project everything. And if you don't do it yourself, at least subscribe to a site like RotoGrinders that has a great team that does it for you. Let's take a look at the chat. Brian Schrader's asking about the Discord. Yes, I'm always in the Discord. If you sign up for RotoGrinders Premium, I'm in the NBA channel like half the day. And you could mention me, ask me strategy questions. Don't ask me 1v1s or 2v2s. I'm just going to tell you to look at the projections. But if you want to talk, a lot of times, maybe not during the slate, but like in the mornings, like in the afternoons, like 2 o'clock or something. Like, can you take a look at this? Was this a good idea? Those types of things. Or late at night, sometimes 1 in the morning. Someone's like, well, I thought about doing this. And we talk about strategy a bunch. And less so on, who's going to crush tomorrow. So feel free to join us. I'm in there all the time. Let's see. Let's see the chat. Corey Stevens asks, how does DK determine when a player gets a flame or a snowflake? I think it's 5.5x. I think it's 5.5x on how the thing determines it. But I mean, obviously that's just a visual display. It doesn't matter, right? It's a way to say that your guy is on its way to having a great game or had a great game. But outside of that, like, who knows? Maybe they'll lower it. Maybe they'll make you feel better by lowering it. If they made it 5x, more guys would have flames. But then you have the complaints, right? When the chalk smashes, right? The slates where the chalk smashes, and then people like don't even cash with 340-point scores on DraftKings. It's like, I got all flames and I didn't even make any money. Maybe they want to avoid that. Maybe that's the reason they keep a certain threshold, so it doesn't look like you had a great lineup, but take that thumb and put it right up you know where, right? And now that you're taking your thumbs, hit the thumbs up button. Let's see. Going through the chat. We got a lot of chat. We got a lot of chatters here in the morning. That's good. And not as many trolls, right? So this is what we do. If I missed your question today, just come tomorrow, right? We literally didn't even talk about today's slate, right? I'm just going through stuff. If you're in the YouTube chat, you're my priority, okay? I know people listen on pod. If you, this is going to be on every day, Monday through Friday. I know like 4 months from now, people will be subscribed to the podcast on iTunes. Search for DFS Pregame Show on iTunes. Rate and review. They're going to be tired of me answering the same questions over and over again. It's like, didn't you answer this 2 weeks ago? Well, if people are live in the YouTube chat and they need help, I'm here for you. So it could be about yesterday's slate. It could be about today's slate. It could be about strategy in general. It could be about anything. This show is what you make of it, right? Brandon Kegel asked, what are the concepts from poker that carry over to DFS? Primarily thinking probabilistically and expected value. Like all of poker is expected value. Am I getting the right price for the probability of this event happening? That's pretty much that's what poker is. So you have to think in terms of probabilistically. Most people in DFS, you see around, Donovan Mitchell's going to do great or do badly. Like, well, it's not 0% or 100%. It's like, what percent is it? That's why I look at the projections. It says here, like, let's go to Donovan Mitchell. Based on our current projections, and I always have to say current because these things could change. Donovan Mitchell, 7,400 today. He has a median projection of 39. He has a smash percentage of 25%. So 25% of the time he puts up, a big score, 50-plus points. Something like that, right? Well, actually, it's almost near his ceiling. So about 50 points. Okay? So this is what I mean by coming over from poker. It's like determining on whether or not a flush will come in on the next card. Like, I can't determine on this specific card. All I can know is that it's about 4.5 to 1, right? There's 9 hearts left in the deck, and there's 46 unseen cards. So that's the probability. Whether or not it happens on this specific hand, I have no idea, but I know what the probability is. So that's what these numbers are. So thinking in terms probabilistically, that's why when people ask me, it's like, do you like Donovan Mitchell today? It's like, I don't know, what does like mean? What does favorite mean? I know that he has, based on our projections, he has a 25% chance of smashing. And then people will ask, well, do you think he smashes today? Well, that's like the same as me asking, do you think the flush comes in on this hand? Like, how the hell am I supposed to know? I can't see the back. The cards aren't marked. I have no idea. So once you start thinking in those terms, like you would in poker, you tend to play DFS much better because you're not locked into, thinking about, well, this guy has a great matchup and this thing's going to happen and whatever. It's like, nope, I got numbers here. D'Angelo Russell, he'll smash 30% of the time. He'll be X owned. Is it worth playing this player at this price for this ownership? And that's what poker is. The same thing as, do I call a $100 bet into an $800 pot for my flush draw, right? Well, I'm getting 8 to 1 on my money from the pot, and it's a 4.5 to 1 chance of it happening. So I'm getting paid more than the probability of it happening. So I should call. But if, let's say, the guy bets it's an $800 pot and he bets $600, right? So now I have to call 600 to get 1,400. So that's like 2.2 to 1. Well, it's a 4.5 to 1 chance. So I'm not getting the right odds. The probability is less than what I'm being paid for, so I should fold. Very similar in DFS when you're looking at players on an individual level and even lineups in general. How much chance does this lineup have to win this contest? Is it worth me, playing this lineup in this contest? Is the probability higher than what I'm getting paid? So that's expected value. Poker players do it on like literally every hand, every round of every hand. So imagine playing 5 years of poker, playing 30 to 50 hands an hour, depending if you're playing online, and 40 to 60 hours a week. Like your mind just works in expected value like all the time. So then when you get into DFS, we see so many former poker players or current poker players that are great at DFS. It's not a coincidence. It's because of that mindset. You're already thinking probabilistically, and now you're applying it to a game that is also based on probabilities. The problem is that it's not like a 52-card deck. So it's like the probabilities aren't like concise of like, it's 9 out of 46. Here, you're using projections to kind of like estimate it. And then obviously your projections could be off. So like these percentages, it may not be 30%. Maybe it's only 27%. Maybe it's 33%. So you're going to have some fragility in what the probabilities are to begin with. So it makes it harder, kind of obfuscates it a bit, right? So people don't understand that it's a game of probabilities and not a game of sports. Neil asked, where do you find the top players and see what they do? You can go to rotogrinders.com/resultsdb. It's free. You don't even have to be a premium member. So that screen, the screen that I had up before, like the screen, you can go to any contest you want. See, I can go back to the slate. Here's the 9-game slate, contests. I can go to any of these contests. They update it throughout the day with more contests, all the public ones. I could go to $600 Mega Man. I could go to $8 Excellent Eights. And you could even search for your own lineups. If you cash in a contest, in one of these contests, your lineup will be there also. You'll see your name. So if you want to go see your name, go to rotogrinders.com/resultsdb. Matthew Hampton asks, do you ever intentionally build lineups with players from later games to allow for later news that may come even if the projections are a few points lower? Yes, I do that sometimes. Especially if we're expecting late news, right? I think the other day, there was a day where LeBron's always going to be questionable now, apparently. But I think LeBron was questionable, and the early value was like, eh. And so I was like, maybe I can play Schroeder and Davis. And worst case scenario, yeah, I play Schroeder and Davis. But best case scenario, they become great plays. So I think on that slate, I built a lot of Schroeder and Davis into my lineups, knowing that I could easily swap from them because, that was like a 10:30 game. And I would still have like the 9 o'clock. There was still like 3 or 4 other games that I could choose from. So yeah, there are times. It's a judgment call. It's not a type of thing of like you always do or you don't do. You just look at your constructions and go, I'm going to play a lot of chalk if I don't like find a way to get different. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll take a shot on this Lakers news. And obviously it didn't work out, right? I ended up playing Schroeder and Davis, and Schroeder got there a little, but I didn't have to swap. I mean, they were also low owned, so it's like by that point my lineups were kind of duddy as it was. So it's like there's no Schroeder is going to be 4% owned, and I have like 50% of them. So I'm automatically different. So if I need leverage, it's there already. So I didn't have to switch. Okay, let's see. Am I setting rules to not have 2 players from the same team because of negative correlation? It depends on their prices. Mark Smith. It really depends on their prices and their roles on the team. I typically don't have 2 players that play the same role, that come out for each other, that kind of play the same role, like Bagley and Holmes. Those are the types of players I don't like having together in the same lineup because they eat away from each other. And then it also depends on price. So like when Kyrie and Durant are both, if they were both 10K, like it's hard for both of them to get 60 points in the same game. It could happen, but it's less likely. So really it depends on the price. But if you tell me Kevin Durant is 4,000 and Kyrie's 10,000, then yeah, sure, I can play them together because Durant's median is going to be like 45 points. 45 points for 4,000, that's perfectly fine with me. So it really depends on the price. As the prices come down, the negative correlation doesn't matter as much because you'll see that their smash, their projection is going to be so high regardless if they're negatively correlated. Going through the chat, we got a couple of minutes left. If you got any questions for the last couple of minutes, feel free to put in the chat. I'm scrolling through. I'm trying to get to as many as possible, but I'm also trying to be as helpful as possible. So let's see. When looking through your projection, okay, this is a decent question. When you're looking at a projection, what's your point per dollar threshold to be considered bad? It's really in relation to the slate. There's no oh, I'm not going to play a guy that's here, 4.94 right here, Nicholas Batum. Can't play him. You have to think in terms of lineups. Like if I just built 12, 20 lineups right now, this is just the best whatever. We get a Koji and Zubac, and we get a bunch of, I'm just like Daniel Gafford is in one lineup. Where's that Daniel Gafford lineup? In the top 20? Here's a Daniel Gafford lineup with a 273.98 median. Okay? So 273.98. The top median is 275.93. So it's 2 points below and has Daniel Gafford in it. Okay, with a 17-point projection. So that projection is like what? 5.2x? Which is not great. But the lineup is actually not bad. So I think the best way to put it is that there's no such thing as a threshold on a player. There's a threshold on a lineup. If this lineup was 260, I'd be like, okay, then that's a significantly worse lineup than that first one that's up here, 275. But this lineup, you'd be like, well, that Gafford lineup, like, how do I play Gafford? Well, it makes sense in that lineup. So I don't want to necessarily exclude players that are badly projected, but not like to the point of stupidity. Like most likely, like we go by point per dollar here on Lineup HQ. Like most likely the guys down here, the guys with Xavier Tillman, right? They're not going to appear in lineups anyway, right? A 1.5x, like these, even the 3x guys, Wesley Matthews. Like it's going to be very hard to make a good lineup with any of these players because their projection is just so low. So they're unlikely to end up coming in decent lineups anyway. But once we get into like the mid fours and stuff, okay, because these guys at least have some ceiling, right? We have some 18% smashes here, 16% smash. We got something here. At the bottom, we got like zeros. So like they're not going to show up in lineups anyway. So I don't even have to worry about them. But it's kind of these guys in the 4 range that maybe you can see. Jamal Murray in our projections is only a 4.8x on DK, but he has a 21% smash percentage to get what? Over somewhere around 54 points or so. So you can still play him. You just have to be cognizant of the lineups that you play him in. So it's not, I always say in the Discord, and I say in the theory of DFS class, if you want to take my audio masterclass, 15 hours long, You can go to theoryofdfs.com. You buy it. It's me in your pocket for 15 hours. All these concepts, all in one place. People have listened to it like 3 or 4 times already, right? You go through, you listen, you build lineups. You listen, you build lineups. You listen, you listen a week later. You listen in the car. Go, okay, maybe I have to do that a little bit more. But I always say lineups, not players, right? It's not about if you play Jamal Murray. It's what lineup do you play Jamal Murray in. So let's say, for instance, based on our projections, I lock him in. I just say, I want Jamal Murray, okay? And build 20 lineups. Remember, that top median lineup was like 795, okay? So the best lineup based on our projections that Jamal Murray can be in is 271.78. So you'll be giving up about 4 points in median in order to play him. Now, if he's going to come in at 2% owned, then maybe it's worth it, right? You're getting a lot of relative value. And you have to look at the rest of the lineup. Maybe you don't want to play 4 Nets in the same lineup, but this would be the best projected lineup. Let's look for, here's one with 3 Nets in it. So here's a 271.54 lineup. Irving, TLC, Jeff Green, Gobert, Murray, and that's kind of correlated. Murray with the 2 Wolves, with Zach LaVine. To me, this is not a bad lineup. You're sacrificing about 4 points in median, and you're still able to use Jamal Murray. The reason why you're sacrificing median is because Murray doesn't project all that well. You're getting Murray and then all the best projected players around him. Obviously, we don't have ownership yet. We don't have projected ownership. So you'd look and say, how contrarian is this lineup? The more contrarian it is, the more median points you're willing to give up. So I think the key is to highlight the fact that it's not about necessarily picking the players. It's more about picking the lineups, and then what players fit in those types of lineups. Going through the chat a little bit more, going a little bit of overtime here for the YouTube chat people, because as I say, you're my priority. Especially if you give me the thumbsy thumbs, right? I got to mention that a million times. Hit the thumbs up if you're getting a lot out of this. I think this has been a very helpful show. A lot of times we get questions about today's slate, right? Who do I play? What do I do? Things like that. This was a little bit more of a, basic statistics class, kind of, going back to basics types of things. And hopefully it helped some people that may not be viewing DFS necessarily in this analytical and mathematical way that I do. X Factor is asking about RGV. People never seem to understand what RGV is. RGV in our projections is just the plus minus value of the salary adjusted value of the player's projection. So a 10.8 Jokic, his salary expected value that you would need at 10.8K to just make value, not have a flame emoji, just be able to give you enough points for his salary, for his raw points, would be somewhere around 49. Okay? 10.8 player needs to get about 49 to not have a snowflake, right? It's kind of RGB is the not have a snowflake plus minus. How much is his projection, median projection, over that? Well, it's 6.8 points over that. So RGV is a good way to find good value for a raw points perspective. So it's a plus minus value. It doesn't mean that this guy is better than this guy. You can't really compare players that way. Just that how many points over expectation for his salary is he projected? For the median, right? Because we look at Jamal Murray. Where's Jamal Murray? Jamal Murray is negative in that column. But, he could still smash, right? We have Dylan Brooks, 27% smash, but his median is about a point lower than expectation for his median. But you care about medians for cash games more so than GPPs. So, according to this, I would look at this and go, well, Dylan Brooks looks pretty good as a GPP play if he ends up coming in at, if he ends up coming in at 3% owned over here, which it probably isn't, right? We get ownership in later. I don't care that his RGV, come on, get out of here. I don't care that his RGV is lower because he could still 27% of the time. He could crush. Joe Ingles, 21% of the time. I use smash percentage more for GPPs. RGV more for cash games type of thing. They're typically related, right? All these things are related. If someone's projected well, most of these figures are going to be good. But you can get all these projections by signing up for RotoGrinders. And I know people are like taking screen captures, like, oh, I want to use their projections. These things, we're going to have an update. This may not even be the newest update. This is a 9:58 in the morning update, right? The projections team, Noto, Tuttle, Jamino, Meansy, SBK, Reeves, Alan Lem, like they're in the Slack chat right now. Some of them discussing minutes. They'll be changing things throughout the day. Let me find one final question in the chat. Brad Schrader asked about the Discord link. It's on the RotoGrinders site. You can look up at the top navigation. You'll see Discord. You click on it, it opens up. I'm not the technical person. Email support at rotogrinders.com if you have a problem. Let's see. Is there an ownership percentage to smash ratio you're looking for? It's all in relation to the lineup. So no, there's no specific. But obviously you're looking for someone's smash percentage that's over their ownership. Like in general, it's a broad concept. If a guy has a 30% chance of smashing and they're going to be 2% owned, I'm probably going to play a lot of that guy, right? Right? Way over the ownership. So like that's the concept. Is there a specific number? No. But that's the concept you should be doing and building those into a lineup. Let's see for questions. I have to be very picky since we're very at the end of the show. Is there a video on RARG that goes over building groups and making rules? Yes. If you're a premium member, I did I think 1 or 2 videos where I literally go through my entire process. Like it's like an hour or 2 long. So I mean I've had some videos if you go to my YouTube channel that I've done for RotoGrinders that sort of there, but there's an MME process video that like me and Britt did last year that it's literally the whole process. And yes, on a day-to-day basis it'll change slightly, but if you're a premium member, you'll that's all in that video archive. Like I said, the video archive is like worth its weight in gold. And it doesn't weigh anything, but I mean, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Going through chat. I know the podcast people are like, damn, he's going to be singing going through chat a lot. Let's see. Just because I skipped over your question doesn't mean I don't see it. I know I see a ton of questions. I'm going to be on every day, people. Okay, this is the last time. So if I don't get to your question, it doesn't mean you're never going to answer it. It's like no, I'll just type copy and paste and put it in tomorrow, right? Do you go through your trimmed down player pool and lock players at all when building line? I typically don't lock players, but I will do things like I just showed you now. Murray's interesting. Let me see what lineups look like with Murray in them. Let me see what lineups look like with LeBron James in them, with Jamal Murray and LeBron James in them, and see and compare them. So that's what I'll be doing throughout the day. Like I don't research stuff like matchups, and I don't research any of that type of stuff. I'm researching lineup construction. Going, okay, well, if I play this guy and this guy together, what's the best lineup I can make? What's a different lineup I can make? Or is that good enough compared to other types of lineups? And then I take out Jamal Murray and put someone else in. And go, let's say I want to stack these two with that guy. What do the lineups look like? Do I have to pay down at center? Yes, apparently I have to pay down at center. I can't jam in Jokic into those lineups. Okay, now I put that in the back of my head. Going, okay, I have to compare that type of lineup. Because there could be 1,000 different lineup types. And I have to determine which types of lineups am I going to build on this slate. So that's what I do throughout the day. Not like every minute of the day, throughout the course of the day. I mean, most of the time you have to wait until the 5:30 p.m. Eastern injury report for anything to matter anyway. So don't get locked onto something. Okay, I'm all the way down to the bottom of the chat. Let's see. Yeah, and Big Willie says there's a group making video on the group tab on RG. Okay, so I guess there are some free videos on how to make groups in Lineup HQ. But obviously, you can't really use Lineup HQ unless you're a premium member anyway. But yeah. And single entry, people talk about single entry strategy. It's the same thing. There's no difference between playing multi-entry, a single entry. You're building one lineup, building 100 lineups. It's the same thing. Build good lineups for the contest that you're in. Just understand that in single entry, typically there are smaller fields, so you don't necessarily need the nuts. And the ownership tends to get more condensed. So when ownership comes out for RotoGrinders, this will be for like mostly large field. So if we see a guy that's 30% in large field, he may be 50% in single entry. So you have to weigh that in the back of your mind. But other than that, you're building the same lineups. It's the same types of lineups, just for a different field size and a different ownership. But the concepts are exactly the same. And Drew DP says Blender's Roto Academy video on Lineup HQ is for NBA is very informative. So yes, you could pick that up. You could pick up the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, my 15-hour audio masterclass at theoryofdfs.com. It's me in your pocket, so it's timeless. It's evergreen content. It's the complete game theory of daily fantasy sports, any sport. It applies everything, right? It's the same as I was talking before. So a little bit of overtime today, which is fine. There's no shows coming on after us, so we're fine. You could tune into Grinders Live at 5:30, and then Crunch Time for premium members at 6:30. So hit that thumbs up button on your way out. This has been the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.